Welcome, everyone. It is 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, March 25th, 2021. This is a general meeting of the Board for Intermediate District 287. My name is Regina Neville. This meeting is live streamed on the District 287 YouTube channel. The meeting is also being recorded, and a link for the recording will be available on the school board's section of the 287 website. The public is invited to share their thoughts and comments with the board. Please complete the virtual meeting request form for written input, which is available on the 287 website in the school board section. Written comments received by 4:30 p.m. on the day of the board meeting will be read at the beginning of the meeting. For virtual meetings, which this is, all votes will be taken by roll call led by the clerk. And for those of us present in the boardroom, and it's nice to see people around the table, I invite you to just move your microphone close by and speak slowly, and that will help pick up our voices. And at this time, I'd like to invite Crystal Brackey to read the mission for District 287. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you, Regina. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll have board member introductions. Crystal will say each board member's name, at which time I invite you to state your name and the district that you represent.
And I don't see Shannon on the virtual meeting. Is she in the room with you all?
Thank you. Shannon did notify us that she may be a few minutes late, and no, I do not believe she's arrived yet.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I am Crystal Brackey, representing Richfield Public Schools. Casey.
And Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park Public Schools.
Keene.
Andrea Keene, Wayzata Public Schools.
Dallas. Ruthie, can you hear us?
I'm looking right at you and talking. Sorry about that.
We can hear you now.
Ruthie Dallas, representing Brooklyn Center Community Schools, number 287. Number 286, excuse me.
And board member Michelle Coons is unable to be with us this evening, so we will move on to Marty.
Hi, I'm Heidi Marty, representing West Tonka Public Schools.
Mosqueda Jones.
I'm Jackie Mosqueda Jones. I represent Osseo Area Schools.
Neville.
Hi, I'm Regina Neville, and I represent Edina Public Schools.
Sant.
Sam Sant, Robbinsville 281.
And Seidel.
Adam Seidel, Eden Prairie 272.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have staff member introductions. I'd like to welcome Tanya Allen, Michelle Axel, Ann Becker, Melissa Bratting, Juanine Dempson Amgini, Radius Guess, May Hawkins, Kim Helgeson, Rachel Hicks, Ben McGrath, Chad Maxa, Elizabeth Lodge Rogers, Alexia Poppy Finley, Julie Turia, John Voss, and Superintendent Sandy Lewandowski. Are there any additional staff members I may have accidentally missed? Good to have all of you here. We're going to walk through this evening's agenda. After the approval of our consent agenda, we'll have two share the success and recognition presentations, one from the West Education Center and one highlighting the North Education Center. Our superintendent's report includes an update from Tanya Allen on trauma-sensitive priority, and also a presentation by Radius Guess on District 287 communities of anti-racist practices. Our legislative update will be presented by Superintendent Lewandowski. And in addition to the agenda, which I'd like to point out, is item 6.4, liability and workers' compensation insurance services update, to be presented by May Hawkins. Our instructional report will include a presentation by Dr. John Voss about West Suburban Summer School and he will follow with a presentation about Northern Star Online. There are no business services and labor relations reports this evening. Board business will include a chair update on the superintendent transition and an AMSD update. And we'll close with once around the table and general calendar updates. Are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I move to accept the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Ruthie Dallas, second.
Thank you. Seconded by Ruthie Dallas. Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Brackey is an aye. Casey,
Aye.
Keen,
Yes.
Dallas,
Yes.
Marty,
Aye.
Mosqueda Jones,
Yes.
Neville,
Yes.
Sant,
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next, we have audience opportunity to speak. And Juanine, has anyone requested to address the board this evening?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll have approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as printed?
I so move. Andrea Keen.
Thank you. Moved by Andrea. Is there a second?
Second, Heidi Marty.
Seconded by Heidi Marty. Thank you. Crystal, would you please call the roll for acceptance of the, or approval of the consent agenda?
Brackey is an aye. Casey,
Aye.
Keen,
Yes.
Dallas,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Mosqueda Jones,
Yes.
Neville,
Yes.
Sant,
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Motion carries for approval of the consent agenda. We will move on to share the success and recognitions. And first, I am happy to welcome Alexia Poppy-Finley, who is the West Education Center, ALC, and College and Career Programs Principal. Alexia, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair Neville. I'm glad to be here. I feel like it wasn't too long ago I got to do this, so I get to do it twice. I am here to introduce you to Ishmael Ali. He is a student with us at our Gateway to College program on Eden Prairie campus, and he comes to us from Eden Prairie High School. He joined us in February, and he has been rocking it. So Michael Colas is our science teacher at Gateway, who's going to introduce him.
Hi, District 287. This is Michael Colas. I'm a teacher here at Gateway to College. I want to take a second to talk about one of my students, Ishmael Ali. Ishmael has been working so hard this year, really impressed me. I met him just earlier this year, and honestly, right from the get-go, he has been nose to the grindstone, working his butt off. And in fact, he finished many credits in science earlier than expected. He's been very determined. His goal has been to graduate early. Honestly, with his work ethic, he might just do it. I've been super impressed with him, and I can't say enough about him.
Hello, 287 School Board. My name is Ishmael Ali. I came to Gateway College from Eden Prairie High School, and I'm a senior. I've had some challenges keeping up with my credits because my work ethic started to slip a little last year, and when campus closed because of the pandemic, it made things a lot worse. Online learning was a struggle for me, so this year my odds of graduating on time were getting lower and lower. I heard about Gateway from my counselor, Anthea Amsler, and it sounded appealing to me because it was an opportunity for me to come back for in-person learning in a situation where I could do some things in a small environment and the pace that worked for me. I also really liked the idea of going to school on a college campus. Since I've been at Gateway, my teachers helped me understand what I need to do to earn credit, which has given me motivation to work harder and faster. My teachers made it easy for me to ask them questions too, and I think it helped me to do some high quality work I have done as a student. Now I think I'll graduate this year, and if I work hard, I might finish a little early. My goals for the future are to go to school for IT and cybersecurity because I like technology and these jobs are in demand and high paying. There's also an IT program at Hennepin Tech, and so I'm thinking about continuing here after I graduate. My family is proud of me because they have seen how hard I'm working and how they look forward to me walk across the stage at Eden Prairie and Gateway's graduation. Thank you, my counselor, Ms. Amsler, for recommending Gateway, and thank you 287 District Board for helping students like me find programs to meet our goals.
I would also like to share that he has completed half of since February. He has completed half of the credits he needs to graduate. So he is really thriving in our environment, and he's pretty dedicated to his goals. So it's been a great opportunity to see him thrive. I met him on campus today, which was really nice to be able to greet him and say thank you for completing the video. So the Gateway team and the whole team at Gateway, I was excited to be able to represent him today. So thank you.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions or comments for Alexia? Okay, well, yeah, just a big thumbs up. Thank you. And Alexia, if you would please express our gratitude to Ishmael and also to the team at Gateway, because we know that this is just an incredible team, and it's always the best part of every board meeting to hear the success stories. And he did a great job sharing his story. So thank you so much.
Will do. Thank you.
Next up, we have a spotlight on North Education Center, and I'd like to welcome Rachel Hicks, our Director of Communications and Public Relations. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you. And before I share this submission, I just want to give a reminder that the Superpower campaign is open to everybody in our school community. So our parents and caregivers, our families, siblings, students themselves, our staff, any of you are welcome to submit a story, and that can be done either in a video or through a written submission. So this next submission is from a teacher at North Education Center. And Sandy actually heard about this story, and then we reached out to this teacher and asked her to submit it. And she's not able to be here to share the submission herself, so I'll be reading it on her behalf. So this submission is from Melissa Brandenburg from North Education Center. And it's written in first person. The only thing we've edited is to make sure that the identity of the student is private, because it's a heartwarming and touching story. All right, Melissa writes, a student of mine was having a very hard day. They had overheard news of a grown-up in their life having a life-threatening illness, on top of them having their own trauma and working through their own stuff. The student has their own trauma triggered when they are escorted into breakout spaces. On this particular day, the student was escorted into a breakout space, was screaming and trying to attack staff physically. I came into the room knowing there was a chance I could be hurt on the job, but I also love my students with all I can give them. When I got into the space, the student was trying to push me aside. With a calm voice, I reiterated to my student, I loved them. I was here for them, and I will work with them through whatever we needed to work through. My student, being almost as tall as me, threw their arms around me, stopped crying, and calmly said, Miss Melissa, your heartbeat is calming me down. It is beating slowly, and I can tell you are calm. After returning to my classroom, my male staff asked how I was doing, and I immediately broke down, cried in his arms, and he reminded me he was proud of me. He also reminded me we aren't robots, and although we carry a lot of their stuff with us, we need to let it go too. If you need to cry, you can cry. Our room is a safe space. I cried. I had a student in literacy tell me, this is a safe place. This is a safe space to cry. and carried on with my day. And that's the end of the submission.
Thank you, Rachel. I feel like I need a little space just to take all of that in. That's an extraordinary sharing. Thank you. You could please express our gratitude to Melissa for sharing and deep appreciation for her work and for the compassion that she shares for her students. Any other questions or comments from board members? Ruthie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you for your presentation, and that was very powerful. I was wondering whether, is it Melissa, the teacher? Has she gone through any kind of trauma training, or what has she been doing for self-care? Seemed like she knew what to do and how to do it or whatever, the breathing and so forth.
Not sure I can speak to specifically Melissa's training. Perhaps Sandy or Tanya may be able to.
Tanya, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I formerly was the principal at NEC, and I know Melissa personally. Melissa was actually one of our TTM teachers, so our therapeutic teaching model teachers, a couple of years ago. So she has gone through quite a bit of trauma training, quite a bit of just the reflective supervision and consultation that happens as a part of the therapeutic teaching model program. So she's been around for a number of years. So she very much understands and knows the work that she does with those students. So yes, she has that type of background.
Wow, that's great.
Tanya, would you just mention, maybe explain a little bit about reflective consultation, what that means in the classroom?
Sure. So the reflective consultation that happens with Wilder staff is that they acknowledge that going throughout the day with the teacher and then also with a therapist, a classroom therapist, they understand that obviously they're witnessing all sorts of different things that are happening throughout the day. So, and a part of this program is that opportunity that unfortunately all of our staff don't have access to that, but for that program, working with the students, that's been a part of it. She's not doing that now, but that practice, I think, helped her as a teacher, even though she's not working with TTM students. Because once you get into that practice, it helps you to really process things differently as those incidents keep occurring.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. And you said not all the teachers are engaged in that.
Not all the teachers have probably had the same training that Melissa had. Yes. That's because of her number of years that she's been here. And with TTM, we did additional training on top of what we do with other staff.
Right. That's powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Well, once again, Rachel, thank you very much for sharing. Next, we have item 6, Superintendent's Report, and happy to welcome Tanya Allen, who is our Director of Mental Health and Family Engagement. She will provide an update on mental and trauma strategic priority work to date. So thank you, Tanya. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I will just kind of walk through a short presentation. It won't be too long, just to tell you a little bit about what is going on currently within our trauma priority area. Just thinking about, kind of what does that work look like and where are we currently with that work? So our vision statement that was established before me was to really work towards becoming a trauma-sensitive and healing-centered organization by implementing practices, systems, and supports for trauma through a racially conscious approach. So the way that we've really worked to do that is we've looked at our practices overall. So if for those of you that may remember, we had our neurosequential model in education, or NME, training with Dr. Bruce Perry, and we worked on some key ideas there. But also we have this overarching positive behavior interventions and supports systems and practices. And underneath that is our collaborative problem solving, our social emotional learning, our restorative justice, and our mental health partnerships. So all of these parts are connected in the work that we're bringing forward and continuing to do. And to hyper focus on NME, if we remember that implementation, we had 46 staff in the district go through boot camp with Dr. Bruce Perry and his team to begin that work back in the 2018-19 school year, back in June of 2019, which seems so long ago. And in that next school year, we really spent time going through ongoing sessions. And we had some difficulties, obviously, because of coronavirus with some of the training and support, but we continued to do that. This year has been a year of re-envisioning obviously the impact of the coronavirus, as well as just thinking of having a smaller team. We had a trauma leadership team with about 20 members, and being online, that made it more difficult to facilitate. So we broke into small groups to work on specific things. And next year, what that'll lead to is a very specific implementation plan for the trauma priority work. So that trauma leadership team currently is looking at 3 big areas: our academic and non-academic strategies. And I know those are some acronyms, but that's our collaborative problem solving, our social emotional learning. We're also looking at policy. So when we talk about being trauma sensitive, that means we need to look at our policies and procedures from a trauma informed lens. And that's not always the case when we think about those things happening, things that happen to students and things that happen with our staff. And then the last area is professional development. So the 2 big pieces that have been a part of what a lot of our staff have brought forward is focusing on regulate, relate, reason. So if I'm not regulated, I can't rationalize things in a classroom. I can't really sit there and be focused and attentive for learning. So we've been talking about that strategy, as well as understanding the state that people are in. Obviously, when we're in a calm state, we can receive information. When we're not, obviously, we're not going to be in a good state to learn. So just like that example that we just heard. The other piece is our mental health partnerships. So those are continuing to go strong. Our therapeutic teaching model is at not only at North Education Center, but we have a Wilder therapist that's at South Education Center. And we just started the Wilder program, the Kofi program, with Wilder. And so that is at our Ann Bremer Education Center. So working with our high school students, and that is a culturally specific model. So that is really specifically working primarily with our Black male students at Ann Bremer. We're also continuing our relationships with Headway and with People Incorporated to support our student needs. We are obviously, I know you guys as a board are aware of those grants that we've received, and with our Project Aware grant, we have learned that money cannot be rolled over, so it needs to be spent by September 30th. And we are working to make sure that we spend that about approximately $100,000 remaining that we need to spend. And we're looking at professional development as a core focus for how we spend that money. We also have the STOP grant, which is our grant that was a 3-year grant to help with our critical incidents that are occurring throughout the district. So we are really working to increase over time the number. And obviously with our return of students, we have greatly increased in just this short period of time the number of debriefing sessions we've been held. And we've also created a video so that people that couldn't go through the formal facilitation training can access it at their own time. So that allows us to have social workers, psychologists, and other staff at our sites facilitate those sessions. So I may be involved in a session and normally would facilitate, but I may pass it over to Elizabeth or someone else that's trained to come in because I'm impacted by that incident. One of the big highlights of our Project Aware grant, which is our 5-year grant, is the hiring of a systems navigator. And that systems navigator works for Hennepin County, but provides services to our students and helps to make sure that we're not losing students or students are not falling through the cracks in terms of trying to access supports through Hennepin County. So that is one of our goals, is that this individual, and her name is Amalia, she just started with us, and she's already rolling with referrals and getting in contact with families. So our goal is to really be able to help bridge the gap for those families that have had some of our students that have had those incidents, and you wonder what's happening next. Part of her role is to really work with us to make sure that when a family gets referred into the county, they don't get lost. And sometimes we've had families just not know where to go. They get told, no here, go here. So she's going to take care of really being that intermediary to make sure that families get the services and support they need. And then last but not least, as we look towards the summer and our training vision, Prepare training is one of the trainings that has been recommended as an evidence-based practice, and it's a way of looking at how we respond in terms of crisis incidents that occur in our incident command system. So we're going to pilot with a small group in April and look at how we may need to make some changes or modifications as we bring forth a bigger group in July in this training. The other training that we're starting is youth mental health first aid training, which some of you may have heard of. It's a way of responding, not being a person that's going to necessarily intervene, but a person that's going to be able to listen and assess for a problem, similar to what you do if you were to see someone with a first aid type of issue of calling 911. This is helping identify signs that you can then refer them to a social worker or a psychologist or someone else. And so it's really meant to increase mental health literacy. So that's one of the things we're working on. Restorative practices, we've been working on that. We just want to increase our knowledge and depth of knowledge for our staff. Some staff have only had 1 or 2 days of training, and there's a 4-day training that really gets into facilitating different types of groups to repair harm. We started with a trauma 101, and we want to work on a trauma 102 and a 103 that'll just continue to grow our trauma knowledge, not just for select staff, but for all staff to be able to access. We have had a lot of staff come on board since that initial NME training. So we will be creating a boot camp for those that have come on since then that may want to access that information and content. So that'll be one of the things we're working on, as well as our mindfulness for educators, which is part of our social emotional learning team. They will be working on, we've been working together with Radius to retool some of that information to make sure that it really embraces racial equity, and you can see that throughout the content. And last but not least, the same thing with collaborative problem solving. We've had it, but we really haven't gone back to look at some of that information with a real focus on racial equity. So that's our goal with what we're going to do this summer. So that's my quick overview of mental health and trauma this evening.
Quick overview, but that's a lot of information. Thank you so much. Questions and comments? I see Ruthie Dallas with a raised hand. Ruthie, go ahead, please.
I wanted to say thank you. What a great presentation and the work that's taking place. Oh, do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, I do.
But I'm wondering, why isn't this happening throughout the school, all the school districts? This is something that's needed. I know in our district it's needed. So how can this be expanded? I'm not sure why I'm getting an echo.
Well, Ruthie, ironically, actually, I did do 4 sessions for Brooklyn Center per their request. So I did do 4 trauma sessions working with Jennifer Tuzano and with Deidre Yarbrough. So some of your education assistants, social workers, and other staff did go through 4 sessions with me. We replicated somewhat of a version of our trauma 101, but then we also talked about compassion fatigue and secondary traumatic stress for employees. So I did do that 4 sessions with Brooklyn Center.
Wonderful. So it can continue, hopefully.
Yes, we have to figure out what we're going to do to continue, but yes.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's greatly needed.
Thank you.
Ruthie, I would just add, Ruthie, that I think we probably were maybe a couple years ahead in the trauma work. We're seeing it pop up more and more, and with some of the federal money and actually the governor's supplemental budget, I think there will be more money for mental health. And any way we can help our member districts, we sure would work with any district to try to provide what we know and add to what they know.
Right.
We have Andrea.
And having that, I was just going to say, and having that therapist on board with that incident, that was fantastic, and just to have those kind of setups in other school districts, I think would make a world of difference in the disciplinary areas, and overall for mental health well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruthie. Next, we'll hear from Andrea Keene, followed by Heidi Marty. Andrea.
Thank you. Ruthie, don't you love it when you ask that question and you find out it's already happening in your school district? That doesn't happen very often. I just was curious about the slide about the new Navigator role from Hennepin County, which sounds very positive. And just out of curiosity, I know that some of the ALC plus partnerships with Hennepin County have been a little challenging in the past. Is this a sign that things are going smoothly, and is it funded?
Well, her position is separate. So it's part of, under the Project Aware grant, we requested a role that would be able to address those gaps. So she will be able to work with our ALC plus students as well, but she's really open for any of our students throughout the system. And so that's the benefit. And our social workers and others have been, we've talked about how we're really prioritizing those families that truly have that need, not our typical, not to say we wouldn't call her and ask her for a quick consult, but we really are prioritizing those families that have just had many barriers in accessing the right supports within Hennepin County.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrea, I would just add that this has been about probably not quite 2 years in the making, sitting down with Hennepin County. Ultimately, I think we achieved an intersection that worked for all of us, and it took some outside advocacy, but we're pleased that we were able to actually get the agreement, and Tanya certainly put it in place.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Marty, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Board Chair. I was talking about the exact same thing that Andrea was talking about, that systems navigator position. Just in the time that I've been on the board, it's been very clear that this is desperately needed, and I'm so happy to see that it's finally come to fruition. I was curious about it, how we were paying for it. It sounds like this is enabled through a one-time grant. Is that correct?
Yes, it's through a grant, and it's a 5-year grant that we have. So we have up to 5 years to have this role be present for us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Additional questions? Sam Sant, go ahead, please.
I was going to say I'm excited and happy to see this being implemented. It's a great program, a list of, and a huge, wider proportion than other students, and we really take a look at other ways to reduce this type of disciplinary action, and also increase the amount of time that they have in front of the classroom, to get them educated in our system. Along with that, along with changes to our student guidebook was a big help for us, and we've seen the results of that. Now it's huge what we've seen, how it's really helped in our district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Other questions and comments? Well, we appreciate the update, Tanya. Thank you so much. And thanks to your team for implementing so many different segments toward this goal. It's really impressive. And to see how much has happened over the last 2 years, or is it almost 3 years from 2018? That's impressive. And it's exciting. It's the right direction for the district. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6.2, District 287 Communities of Anti-Racist Practices. And I'm happy to welcome Radius Guess, our Director of Equity and Inclusion, to provide an update to board members on District 287's Communities of Anti-Racist Practices, and to prepare board members for a visit by Resmaa Menakem, the New York Times best-selling author and somatic abolitionist, who will address the board at a future meeting. Welcome, Radius.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see all of you here on tonight. I was really excited when Superintendent Lewandowski asked me to kind of provide an update on the work that we are doing in the area of race equity. And so we titled this presentation, Building a Community of Anti-Racist Practice and leadership development. So it's an update for you just to kind of let you know a little bit about the kinds of things that we're doing at this time. And I asked Juanine if she would support me by sharing my screen. So my slides. Next slide, please. So I always like to start a racial equity presentation by just reminding us all and centering us around how we are defining race equity. So in 287, our board policy defines race equity as the result achieved when no one can predict advantage or disadvantage by race. But because of the work that I know that a lot of government agencies and municipalities around the country are doing, and they're doing work with GARE, which is the Government Alliance for Race Equity, I also really like their definition. So racial equity is realized when race can no longer be used to predict life outcomes, and outcomes for all groups are improved. So that those two definitions really do provide some guiding and some visioning around how to advance and lead in race equity for a school district like ours. Next slide, please. So the learning intention that I have planned is basically just a board update. I really want to talk about the anti-racist practices and leadership development that we have put in place in the district. You might be surprised to know that we have 7 different equity teams in the district. So each building has an equity team, care and treatment has an equity team. We also have 2 departments in the district that have an equity team. HR is one and finance is the other. So there's about 150 plus staff that are currently participating as volunteers on an equity team in the district. Another community of practice is our AASA Equity Change Cohort. And there's 9 staff that are participating in that program. And one of them is a school board member. It's actually our school board president. So the Year of Learning, which is also a community of practice, has about 115 participants. And I'm happy to say that of that 115, 5 of them are school board members. So another update that I wanted to talk about, which is about the leadership development and again, anti-racist practices, lets you know that we have put in place some equity tools. So we have 3 equity tools that we are working with right now. One is called the Being Heard tool. So the Being Heard tool is a communication tool for 287 staff to use when dealing with race and other conversations, including microaggressions that might occur in the workplace. So 287 used this tool to document the nature of the perceived racial incident or the microaggression and collaborate toward a solution. The goal is to limit defensiveness, microaggressions, and negative behaviors. The key is to provide practical help and support resilience. So another tool that we are using is one that's called the Racial Equity Impact Analysis tool. And I think most of you are familiar with that tool because it really does allow us to take a look at what are the racial equity impacts of this particular decision? Who's going to benefit or be burdened by that particular decision? Are there some strategies to mitigate any unintended consequences of the decision? And then, of course, who's not in the room that needs to be in the room? Who needs to be a part of this decision that is being made, or this discussion that we're having right now around a policy or a procedure or a protocol? So again, who's not here that needs to be here? We're also looking at a budget equity tool, and that's coming soon. And as soon as we really finalize what that would look like, I look forward to joining some staff to share that information with all of you. Next slide, please. So what we're most excited about in the district is our Year of Learning, because the Year of Learning is being led by Resma Minikim. So the Year of Learning is a process that will lay the foundation of future learning and growth. It's also designed to equip staff as well as our school board members with the tools and knowledge needed to create an internal cultural shift. So I will tell you that we had, oh man, I would say about 170 or so staff that actually submitted an application to be a part of the Year of Learning. And of that number, we were able to accommodate about 115. So we're very excited about the possibility of entering into another opportunity for a year of learning with our staff to be a part of part 2 year of learning. Next slide, please. So we call the participants in the year of learning racial equity internal influencers. So the racial equity internal influencers can really be any staff that are interested in playing a leading role in operationalizing how Intermediate 287 is committed to racial equity and inclusion. Internal influencers also serve as the engine of change, leading the way, pulling others along, chugging through sometimes very, very tough terrain, keeping things on track, and moving a diverse organization toward racial equity. Internal influencers are building cultural capital, building capacity and momentum to arrive at the destination of a racial equity action plan that aligns with 287's strategic priorities. Next slide, please. One of the things that the Year of Learning participants do is that they participate in Affinity Spaces for their development and their growth. So participants are divided into 3 groups. They're either Group A, which is BIPOC bodies of culture, or they're going to be in Group B, which is white bodies, or Group C, which is all bodies coming together for a mixed space. So the groups rotate throughout the year with groups A and B coming together as a collective. And in total, the Year of Learning consists of 4 monthly affinity sessions for each participant and 4 all body sessions. So there is a monthly year of learning consultation. So the all body group sessions give an opportunity for all of the bodies to come together. The separate group sessions create safe spaces for bodies to share and reduce the possibility of harming or re-wounding other participants. Next slide, please. There is a time commitment, and everyone received this information in advance so that they would know exactly what the commitment would be to be a part of the Year of Learning. So there's a lot of reading time because, as you know, Resmaa is a best-selling author, New York Times, My Grandmother's Hands. And so we asked for all of the staff to commit to at least 45 minutes a month. That's not a lot, right? We also asked for communal time, which is when we all come together for that commitment, again, 45 minutes a month. And then individual time consultations, which is where they do their readings, which is where they do some scribing or some journaling. So there's a lot of commitment that goes into being a part of the Year of Learning. Next slide, please. So ultimately, though, the staff that are participating in the Year of Learning are deepening and expanding their relationships. So they're learning how to intentionally mobilize and settle their nervous systems during and after any racialized interactions so that they can be more effective in co-creating capacity to build a wellness culture within District 287 that acknowledges and actively repairs historical and ongoing racialized stress and trauma. Next slide, please. Resmaa Menakem. He is leading our Year of Learning. As you all know, he is a New York Times best-selling author. He's an artist and a psychotherapist that is specializing in the effects of trauma on the human body and relationships in Black families and Black society. His book, again, is My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. It was published in 2012. So what I'm being told is that we have a very strong possibility that Resmaa will be joining us at a future board meeting. That board meeting might take place in April or it will take place in May. We're trying to confirm a date right now. My ask of you is that since we know it's a very strong possibility that Resma will be coming to join us, is that each one of you, I'm told, has the book, My Grandmother's Hands. I think it might be beneficial for you to make sure that you have at least read, at a minimum, the table of contents through chapter 2. So that's a great place to start so that you could step into the conversation. But I will also tell you that if I'm not mistaken, that staff that are participating in the year of learning are already on chapter 9 and 10. So next slide, please. I would ask that any staff that are here that are participants in the year of learning that could assist me in responding to any questions that you might have, that I'm open for that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Radius. It is extraordinary, the learning opportunities that you've created for District 287. Thank you. It's an incredible benefit. Questions or comments? I think we all still have the book, so this is well, I know I'm still reading through it, so ready for chapter 11. Andrea, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a quick thank you to Radius. It really has been kind of transformational. And the one thing that Radius didn't mention is that part of being part of the year of learning is also having a triad. So you're randomly placed with two people, in my case, two people you don't really know, and then you meet on Zoom and it gets so deep. And we meet monthly, and sometimes we do what we're assigned to do, and sometimes we just talk. And it's been such a great addition to what is already, like I said, kind of transformative, Radius. So I think when you designed it and made it regular and committing to doing it with repetition, and I guess Resma would call that getting our reps in, but that really seems to make a difference in my 53-year-old brain. I think it might be sticking a little. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Ruthie, and then Crystal. Ruthie, go ahead, please.
Well, I just want to say thank you as well, Radius. This has been very powerful, and just looking forward to what's coming next. And it's really been effective for me because I did get our board to start reading the book as well. So we're having like I'm getting a double whammy in discussions around this. They're starting out and with our equity person on board. So thank you.
You're welcome. I had the pleasure of meeting your equity person in a few meetings back, and really do appreciate the work that he's doing in your district.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Crystal.
Ruthie, that's so incredible. That's so neat to hear that you're bringing this across multiple districts, and a good inspiration and push to think, I think, for the rest of us about what we can be doing as well. And I just wanted to appreciate as a learner that there are these different ways to engage throughout the course of the year. There are the triads that Andrea mentioned, and shout out to my triad, and resources that people are sharing with each other in between conversations as well. And then that there is I think, real intentional and necessary space for people to come together in racial affinity and identity oriented groups, and then also time to come together across racial identity groups, and just realizing, I think, how important that is for growth, but also for safety. And that I really appreciate the approach that I think we're experiencing, but also learning alongside in terms of just seeing different models and different ways that this work can be done. And I shared right before the meeting started that, the responses that people have given when they've heard that this district is engaging in this directly with Resma is really pretty mind-blowing in terms of how impressed people are, how jealous people are. So I'm just like, I just want to publicly appreciate and acknowledge the opportunity that we have, and that, some of us as board members are able to do this with and in partnership with staff means a lot too. And then lastly, I'll just say my goodness, that he might be joining us at a board meeting really excites me for the conversation to come for us as an entire board specifically. So thank you for the heads up about that.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Other
you,
questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Radius. Look forward to continuing the work and the conversation. Next, we have item 6.3, a legislative update, and welcome Superintendent Lewandowski to provide an update on legislative priorities. Sandy. And Sandy, you may be on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, there we go. Good evening, everyone. And I know everyone here probably keeps track of legislative progress to varying degrees, but we certainly are moving into roughly the last 6 weeks of the session. So things are starting to gel and come together a little bit more. I thought it would be timely to just give a brief overview of some pertinent bills pertinent to our intermediate district and update you as I can. Obviously, nothing is settled till it's settled with the legislature, but it's been, I think, an interesting year in one way, in that our platform really so far has been a relatively minor part of the whole pictures of bills that could impact intermediate districts and certainly District 287. So I'll start just a little bit with the platform, though. As you know, we had 3 main items. We left them purposely vague because there were so many unknowns and so many variables prior to session. But I think the Safe Schools bill, which is authored by Senator Chamberlain, is certainly still in play. It's right now, it's at a very low level of funding for intermediates anyway, of $1 of additional revenue that would come out of the current reading. But I suspect as the session goes on and they get into omnibus bills, that could change. At least we would hope it would change and increase. The other 2 more minor bills are still in play. I think of the 2, the extended time revenue has gotten a lot of attention. It seems that when we've testified that there is a recognition of the inequity between some programs in the state, care and treatment programs, being able to access that extended time revenue. And so we're cautiously optimistic about that. I also included the MASA legislative update because it really was the most recent, only in the last couple of days. I also included it because there are some bills on there that I just wanted to reference that are of major importance to our district, and actually, especially the third-party bill is really important to all school districts, in that it's trying to authorize third-party reimbursement for school social work services. So we already can access reimbursement for things like OT, PT, related services. This bill would add school social work to that list of related services. It is proving to be very tricky to find language that can get all stakeholders to support. It's a critical bill for us. It would probably amount to a few $100,000. And we think that that's very legitimate because it's a pot of money that's dedicated to that. And right now, Minnesota isn't accessing that particular pot of third-party reimbursement money. So we're actively involved behind the scenes in trying to support and move along that bill. The other one that also certainly impacts all school districts is the Special Ed Recovery Services bill. A lot going on in that bill right now, and the current language is exhaustive in terms of recovery services. And I think there will be more conversations, certainly as the session wears on, about how to refine that bill. Also, kind of on a similar note, a set of language that would allow for students who are in their third year of transition services to access an additional year, possibly up to a year of services because they missed so many things during distance learning. And so we'll just see how both of those bills pan out. They're very expensive bills, I can guarantee that. But they are ones to watch. Then, kind of on a similar vein, we were pleased to see that the governor's supplemental budget included some additional funding for intermediates. You may recall, I think I shared a letter with you that I sent to the commissioner several weeks ago. Indeed pointed out that there was some inequities we felt in the federal money and how it was distributed. Really appreciate Commissioner Mueller's attention to that matter and addition of some funding in the governor's supplemental budget around increasing student support personnel. There's a bill for that would increase the intermediate amounts from $4 to $6. That would provide some additional funding, as would things like comp ed revenue would be provided for all districts, but we would be included in that. And then some substantial schooling mental health money that would be in the form of grants. So we're pleased to see that there were some additions to that. I think the one other bill that really has just perhaps in play right now is a bill that would allow for additional levy authority for non-member districts who are not part of an intermediate. So you're, I'm sure, all aware that as a member district, you have levy authority over and above the levy authority that you have as a K-12 district because you are part of an intermediate, such as the safe schools money, lease levy kinds of money, those things you have access to additional pots of money because of your membership. Non-members would like to access those same levy authorities. And so we are in consultation with both lobbyists, Valerie Doslin on our end and the lobbyists for this particular bill. So that's another one that we're watching rather carefully. So that's just a wide range of things that are in play. And like I said, it's rather unusual in that right now our platform items seem rather small compared to the other things that have emerged from other sources. But we're continuing to stay close to each thing as it passes through committees and hoping to provide whatever support we can to the committees that are hearing those bills. So I'll stop right there and see if there's any questions. And I know May can help with some of the answers as well.
Thank you, Sandy. Questions or comments?
I have a quick question. Sorry, let me raise my hand. This is Andrea.
Thank you. Go ahead, Andrea.
Thanks. Sandy, I have a quick question about decreased enrollment. I know that in all of our regular districts, we have seen decreases in funding because of decreases in enrollment. And I know that 287 also has significant decreases in enrollment. Would any of the bills that provide mitigation for that, either the governor's enrollment decrease formula or just using a different year? Well, that wouldn't really matter because you're funded differently. Do they, I guess my question is, do any of those bills help 287 at all that look at enrollment decreases?
Well, May chime in here as well.
Yeah,
but
you want to hand it over?
Go ahead. I'll add to what you have to say. Go ahead.
So the short answer is no.
Okay.
Because of the fact that they're using the declining enrollment revenue,
Mhm.
the state declining enrollment aid, and the intermediate district is not eligible for that particular type of aid. So increasing the percentage of that aid will not help us.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you, Sandy. We'll certainly stay tuned in the weeks ahead.
Yes.
A lot going on. Okay, I'd like to welcome May Hawkins to our Executive Director of Business Services to provide an update on liability and workers' compensation insurances. Welcome, May.
Thank you. Good evening, board chair and board members. So sorry for the last minute addition, but I needed to give you an update on where we're at with a project that we've been working on. I have asked Juanine to share my presentation. So Juanine, we can go right to the next slide. So once again, we have our learning intentions here. So basically, the board members and the public will understand the district's insurance services and then the next steps that we're going to take. And we'll do that by looking at where we were, where we are now, and what's next. Next slide, please. So where we were, we've had the same insurance broker company for over a decade, maybe even longer than that. That's all the longer I can go back and document. We've had the same carriers for several years. We did go out to the market last year, and the results of going out to the market ended us back with the same carriers that we'd had in previous years. We are very happy with the services that have been provided by our carriers. Next slide, please. So where we are now, we have had large increases in our workers' compensation mod over the last 6 years. So, and what a mod is it's the experience modification factor. So what it is the multiplier. So there's the premium that you would get, and then how far you're different from what they refer to as the average, which would be 1.0 for a mod, is a multiplier that's multiplied times your premium for the insurance company to say how much you're going to pay in premium. The mod's based on the claims experience for the 3 prior closed years, right? So, and our mod has increased from 1.31 in 2015 to 2.82 for 2020-21. And as you can see on the little graph that I gave you that gives a little history, you can see it's going to 3.05. I know that's hard to read. It's in your board book as well. So we kind of saw that this was incrementally going up, right? And when I say we, the Human Resources Department, this has been a district-wide work. So we have implemented multiple changes over those years. We put in place a managed care system, right, to help our employees. We put in place, we updated and reignited our return to work program, right, so that we're getting employees back to work as soon as they can, right? And we've came up with light duty positions so that there are places for employees who have restrictions to come back to work. And then we did a data dig a couple of years ago to go, oh, where are injuries happening? When are injuries happening? Is there any patterns here that we can address? And what we found was that there were a lot of injuries in our first year, right? So we changed our first year training for our employees so that there's more training on how to stay safe. Next slide, please. So where we are now, next step. So as workers' comp, you can see has become more and more of a concern and an issue for the district. We did develop a committee to kind of look at what else can we do, right? So part of that was we did a reach out to the other intermediate districts. In that reach out, we found that 2 of the other intermediate districts have recently seen their mods decrease. So we talked more to both of those intermediate districts to find out, you know, what did you do, what broker were you using, those sort of things. And we decided to contact the broker that 917 was using. We had vendor presentations by that broker, right? And then that was followed up with specific district questions, a whole list of them that we were given to the broker to answer, right? And we also did checked with references. So we checked with folks who have been using their services for 5 years or 6 years or more. Next slide, please. So what's next is we are going to change our insurance brokers. So we're going to change to USI Insurances. They have what is referred to as the Workers' Comp Advisors Service, which is a comprehensive approach. They look at preventing, managing, and financing. And I put this little circle graph that they have up here, and all of these services come with this brokerage firm. So this gray part here is all about prevention and trainings that they do with your staff and workplace culture, right? And then this light blue is about managing the claims, and the dark blue is about managing the finances related to your insurance. So this change will actually be effective tomorrow to enable our new broker to go to the market to get quotes for our renewal of July 1. And then to enable a cohesive insurance approach, we are moving all lines of coverage to the new broker. Next slide, please. Are there any questions?
Thank you, May. We'll start with Sam Sant. Sam, thank you.
The shift of brokers, how much is that saving the district?
So brokers are not paid directly by the school district. Brokers are paid on a commission off of the premiums that you pay to your insurance carriers. So the premiums are already set for the 2021 school year, right? The new broker will have an opportunity to see if they can provide us some savings on what we get back for premiums for the upcoming year.
Then we'll anticipate seeing a savings next year then?
I can't say that for sure, right? Because our mod, you can see the jump in our mod for workers' comp. We are predicting an increase in workers' comp, and we know that the liability market is hard right now, so that everybody's seeing insurance increases. What we can expect to see is better service.
And May, we did understand that 917 did realize some savings. Was that correct?
Correct. 917 did realize some savings. This broker is well known in the marketplace and with the carriers as a broker that when they take on clients, those clients see changes in their workers' comp.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Oh, Crystal, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Crystal, you must be muted because I can't hear you.
Yes, I was muted, May. Thank you. My question comes from a place of being very honest that this is foreign to me. This is part of being a school board member that I do not naturally understand or speak the language of. And so my question is just from a staff experience point of view, can you share what changes staff members might experience as a result of this shift and when they would experience them?
Sure. And so we were just in a discussion, Michelle and I, right before the board meeting about this. So one of the things that this new broker brings to the table is a nurse line, right? Where employees call the nurse line directly. They don't work with any intermediary folks. They don't fill out a first report of injury, which then goes to a managed care person who then calls the employee back. They call the nurse line, they get to a nurse right away. That nurse fills out the first report of injury for them, right? And directs them to where they can get the care that they need. So employees get treatment faster.
Thank you.
And can I just ask the follow-up around timing? Like this, it goes into effect starting tomorrow? So this is going to be switching very rapidly for staff?
Correct. So, which was a little bit of a surprise because our first report of injuring is actually done on a system through our current broker, not through our carrier. So, what we're working with both brokers to do is to have a little time to adjust to the new system.
Does that answer your question, Crystal? Great. Other
Yes.
questions or comments? Well, we appreciate the update, Mae. Thank you for the research.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 7, our instructional report, and I'd like to welcome Dr. John Voss. He's our Director of Teaching and Learning. He'll provide an update on changes to the West Suburban Summer School. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Chair Neville and board members. The 2 updates on what the board needs to know that are included in the agenda summarize how we're reorganizing 2 programs in response to the events of the past year, West Suburban Summer School and Northern Star Online. We discussed these plans with superintendents in February and are continuing to make progress on both of them. First, West Suburban Summer School has provided challenging enrichment courses as part of our gifted education services for over 40 years now. It's typically held over about 5 weeks during the summer and is funded primarily by fees paid by families who participate. We provide about 120 courses and have had as many as 1,000 students in over 2,000 enrollments in some years. After canceling the in-person program last April and running a small online option, we began to take a hard look at the diversity of our students and staff and how we could address the barriers to participation. From a series of focus groups with member district staff, we identified a few key changes we could make this year. First, starting with our eligibility requirements. Instead of basing eligibility on indicators like test scores, we open it up to any student who shows an interest in accelerated or more challenging coursework. And we also revamped our registration process, so it did not favor those who could be online at one particular moment in a first come, first served basis. And then finally, we've added scholarships and other supports to help students be successful and understand what's coming up and that they're getting into. As we look ahead, we will launch efforts to recruit more BIPOC staff to develop and deliver courses and train all of our staff in culturally relevant teaching practices and implicit bias. With the promotion of enrichment learning opportunities through funding from the state and federal levels, we hope to offer the opportunity for those who are planning some of those classes to visit West Suburban courses in June to see some ideas and to talk with staff about how they plan for those courses and how they work with students to provide project-based hands-on learning in areas of specific interest. So I can pause here if you'd like to take any questions on West Suburban before going on to NSO, or forge ahead and take questions at the end.
Well, I think we could go either way. Let's just roll through because it's all good. So continue with Northern Star Online if that's all right.
Okay, no problem. Northern Star Online is a supplemental online learning program that we offer. It has grown since the early 2000s to become the state's largest supplemental online program. It offers nearly 140 courses and has served about 7,000 students in grades 7 through 12 in the most recent regular year, if you can call it that, of 2019. The past year has led to a shift in the needs of our districts in support of distance learning efforts, which we know has put everyone in the position of providing online learning opportunities. As we move into next school year, we're seeing many families want to continue with some level of online learning. So the experience that we have with nearly 20 years now of providing supplemental courses can be leveraged to support our member districts in curriculum development, systems organization, and other supports for students and parents and staff. So just this afternoon, we met with representatives from all of our member districts and identified a few key areas of collaborative interest. First of all, full-time elementary programming, which requires more synchronous instruction than some of the upper grade level online coursework. Student support in all areas, building from some of the experiences that districts have seen where BIPOC students in particular have shown more growth in distance learning than they had in person in previous years. Another is sharing staff and course offerings between our schools so that in exchange for a certain number of student enrollments or a certain percentage of FTE, teachers from different districts can offer courses through the NSO system. And then curriculum development across the board for programs that our districts are running and that we're running within NSO and with all of our site-based programs too, particularly in areas around accessibility, copyright, cultural responsiveness, and student user design. So we're going to be setting up smaller work groups to address some of these areas and any others that show up of interest in the course of the next few weeks and months. And I'll stop there. Take a breath and take any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I see Andrea has a raised hand. Go ahead, Andrea.
John, that's a lot. You seem so calm.
It's been a long day.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, just completely changing really both of those programs. My question is about West Suburban Summer School. And from my personal experience with that fantastic program that's been going for 40 years, wow. I just think the shifts that you're talking about are so exciting and so needed, so important. But my question is about capacity, because I think it's so wildly popular already, which is why there are so many barriers to the registration process, is because, as you know, you've got all those moms who wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning because they can to get those registrations. So I'm glad to hear you're looking at that. But how will we build capacity in terms of facilities and teachers who are willing to teach it? And do you feel optimistic we'll be able to do that?
I am optimistic. It's going to be, it's going to take some effort because there's a lot of opportunities coming up even this summer already that we'll be competing with staff and other interests for. But part of our goal is to recruit more staff. And I think we see the opportunity to invite teachers to come in and work in the program even this summer as assistants or to shadow some of our teachers, learn what those courses are, will give us an opportunity to offer more sections of some of those classes. Because they've been based on really a personal passion of the teacher, it's not something we can just pick up and replicate really easily and say, okay, you take this curriculum and somebody else teach it. So there's some ways that we can provide that even this year to start building the pool of interested teachers, and then also to look outside of the areas that we have traditionally, so that we can recruit more staff of color, provide some more courses that are more culturally relevant and of interest to a wider range of students. But some of the things that we've run into in the past, we've realized we can really only solve if we can increase capacity. And one of the ideas that came up when we talked with superintendents was if we can provide a teacher in a course at a site where we're offering summer school, that would solve a transportation problem and provide one other opportunity for students during summer school. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, and with some of the funding sources that are being floated for summer, I think there's some opportunity to train staff and give them those opportunities to see where the things we've done can be offered locally.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your work, John.
Additional questions or comments? Well, I want to share the thing. Oh, Ruthie, thank you. Go ahead, Ruthie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Voss, for the presentation. I'm just wondering, do you work closely? You know, Brooklyn Center Community Schools has an online school, Insight. And so I'm wondering, do you work closely with our program? How does that work as far as students? Because I know it's very few of our Brooklyn Center students that's in this online, in the Insight
Right.
School.
Eh,
And how many of Brooklyn Center students are in this program? You have somewhat of a percentage or number?
There's, I don't have it at my fingertips, but off the top of my head, I believe there's been a handful of Brooklyn Center students over the course of the last few years. I am familiar with Insight Academy. It's
Okay.
more of a full-time program where students can enroll comprehensively and gain their diploma through that school. That's not
Right.
something that we do with NSO, so it's kind of a counterpart that if a student is looking for a full-time online option, Insight Academy is a place where they can do that.
Okay.
We do collaborate with them through an organization called the Minnesota Online Learning Alliance, which is state-approved providers that talk about and share ideas on practices and policy. And we've worked with them on some legislative issues over the course of the last few years.
Okay, that explains it well. Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you, John. It's exciting. It's exciting direction and certainly very timely. I'm sharing Andrea's interest in the West Suburban Summer School and particularly excited about the opening up of eligibility, the change in qualification. And I would appreciate a report back when there is information to share as to how that might change the program. I think it's a terrific direction.
Sure, thank you.
All right. We're going to move on. There is nothing for item 8, Business Services and Labor Relations Report. So next up, we have board business and no policy this evening, but just a chair update on the superintendent transition process. So what I'd like to share is that to inform the board that we are going to schedule a board workshop specifically to begin our superintendent transition discussion. This is a decision that rests with the board, as was shared in overview with our MSBA workshop on February 25th on hiring the right superintendent. At the workshop, we will hope to schedule this on either April 8th or the May 13th meetings. So we're going to take a little bit of time to see how those agendas are settling out and to figure out which agenda has the best amount of space to accommodate the workshop. So stay tuned for more information. Our agenda is basically going to introduce the search, to clarify our goals as an intermediate district that we are leading with racial equity and trauma-informed practice in our search. We also want to discuss the support for the search and the timeline. Our proposed agenda will include identifying the next steps for search support, what that looks like with the search team, to clarify the roles of our internal staff support, and also to discuss the scope of the search regarding internal, statewide, and national. So basically looking at the parameters of the transition. So watch for more information about that. Are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to add about scheduling this workshop? All right, well, stay tuned for more information. This is an open meeting, and this is something that, again, we were able to hear about at our February 25th workshop, but all of our superintendent discussions will involve the full board with the open meeting. So that will be how the workshop is structured. So stay tuned. Next up is our AMSD report. And we have several representatives with AMSD, Crystal Brecky, Ann Casey, Andrea Keene, and Ruthie Dallas. So is there a report this evening? Any updated information? I'm seeing a no. Okay, so April. We'll have more, yes, we'll have more to talk about in April. Thank you. District news, we have always information in the packets about things that are coming up. Our next Local 2209 virtual breakfast is Tuesday, April 27th at 7 a.m. So if anyone is interested in attending, please let Juanine and Jeannie know so that you can receive a link to participate. Are there any questions about our calendar or any information people would like to share for once around the table. Sam?
I was gonna ask a question about the local 2209 breakfast. I know we
Yes.
discussed maybe it could be in person. Is that not possible then? Or?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. So Sandy or Juanine, can either of you address the option of 2209's breakfast being in person?
To be completely transparent, we haven't considered that yet, but that prompt will at least allow us to consider it and see whether we have the right venue to do that, and check in with our 2209 partners. So thanks for bringing that up, Sam. We'll follow up with the board.
Thank you. Other questions or sharings for once around the table? Sam?
I spoke with our superintendent today, Stephanie Barrage, and she said it was okay that I could announce this. But the governor was going to announce at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning that she will be the new deputy commissioner of Department of Education.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Wow.
That is
Yes.
quite an announcement.
It's been circling around. Yesterday we found out, and it circled around the staff. And so I asked her, and she said I could mention it tonight at the meeting.
Congratulations. Woo.
Yes.
That's big news. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So now it's really going to be a superintendent search for us now next coming month.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll share everything you learn. And we'll continue forward. Thank you for sharing that. And we certainly wish her all the best and wish Robbinsdale all the best.
And she's still around. She's going to be a resident of our district still, and she will be advocating statewide now. So we're happy for that.
Absolutely. Well,
That's
best of luck all
nice.
around. That's exciting. Anything? Okay, I don't know if anybody can top that, but regular sharing is also fine. Okay, well, I know spring breaks are coming up. They're either just passed or upon us for our district. So I certainly wish everyone a safe and healthy break, but also a much needed rest. Sandy, anything else that you would like to share before we close out?